When I started having a drinking problem and I went cold turkey and I developed massive cravings. So I went from being just sort of a social drinker to a heavier drinker to then a binge drinker. Because when I relapsed from that sobriety, I would just binge and then go sober again. So that turned into a completely different style of drinking, which is a different alcohol use disorder, binge drinking.
And sorry, at its worst, before you sought help, how bad was it?
Oh, it's progressive. So the binges would get worse. My last horrible binge was I had to go to a medical detox because I didn't know back then that it's not safe to go cold turkey. You should taper off of alcohol. And I didn't know that. So I would just always go cold turkey and suffered this particular time back in 2009. I suffered really bad withdrawal and sort of went into the DTs and lost muscle control and things like that. So I went to a medical detox. So that was the worst.
And does that mean that was a 30-day rehab center?
No. That was just I went into a medical detox place that my insurance would take. They gave it was a horrific experience for me. They just treated you like crap. And it was very demeaning, and the people there had no compassion whatsoever.
Where was it?
Here in Tarzana.
And this is what type of this is a county
medical.
hospital?
It's a medical detox that happened to be covered by my insurance, and you just go in there, you fill out, even though you think you're about to die and you're shaking so hard and you're puking, they won't let you touch your belongings to get a sweater. They make you fill out paperwork before giving you, oodles of paperwork before even helping you calm down from the physical withdrawals that you're going through.
Did somebody bring you in there?
I had a friend drive me, of course. Yeah, I had a friend drive me over there, and I left the second. I also didn't know about medications that could help you to calm down and to not maybe go into a complete stroke. I didn't know any of this. I really was naive, believe it or not. But
you can die from this.
You can die from this. Yes, you can die from withdrawal from alcohol, opiates, from many things. But particularly, I did not know how bad it could be with alcohol. Nobody ever told me. I didn't read Hams. I didn't know that you should taper off a low alcohol thing and slowly detox your body. I would just go, oh gosh, I can't do this anymore, and I'd just stop. And it was very dangerous that particular time. Once I got the medication, I don't even know what they gave me, maybe a Trazodone or Valium or whatever the heck they use in those places. The second it hit my system, I checked myself out and I said, I can't stay here. It was awful.
You're saying
I just checked myself out.
But the drug hitting your system, whatever
and
they
once
gave
the
you?
drug hit my system and I stopped shaking, I said, okay, I'm out of here because they're not helping me whatsoever. I'm just checked myself out. It wasn't one of those things where they lock you up or anything like that. It's voluntary. It wasn't like I was passed out. I was fully comprehensive. I was just suffering physical results of
And so then
alcohol
where did
poisoning.
you go next for treatment?
Well, then I stayed as always. I had a long bout of sobriety, and
But what was what assisted you? Was it AA? What were you?
No,
doing?
I did 17 meetings in 2 countries. I didn't respond to AA. AA meetings made me want to drink. I didn't want to sit there for the rest of my life identifying as an alcoholic. That would be like me identifying as a cancer victim, or oh, hi, I'm Claudia, I have leukemia. Hi, I'm Claudia, I have leukemia. I think words are extremely powerful. I wanted alcoholism to be behind me, not in front of me every single day.
Well,
so for me,
I know you refer to it for yourself as alcohol use disorder is what you have as opposed.
The reason why that has nothing to do with 12-step programs. And by the way, I have nothing against 12-step programs. The only thing that they say is that you have to have the desire to quit drinking to attend a meeting. So I don't see why people can't use medication while if their main goal is sobriety, then there's no reason why anybody can't attend an AA meeting and take a camprosate for cravings or take naltrexone to slowly diminish their cravings and to stop drinking. There's no reason why you can't mix MAT with AA, but that's a whole other story. But for me, I didn't like it. And then I tried a regular rehab, and it had no effect on me whatsoever. In fact, once again, alcohol deprivation effect. You're in a false environment. You're paying thousands of dollars, so you're guilty.
This was your inpatient 30-day kind of thing?
I went to a 30-day, and it was just a 12-step program. So why pay for it? Why pay $30,000 to sit there
where
and
was
do?
That?
That was Bay Shore something up north, Northern California. I can't remember, Bay Center.
And just give us a little insight into your 30 days there. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Tai Chi and hang out with girls who are sneaking out and getting alcohol, and go to a gym, which is right next to a liquor store, with nobody watching you. You have a therapeutic session where they label you as narcissistic and antisocial, which every single addict, whether they were methadone or heroin or opiates or alcohol or bulimic, they were all labeled exactly the same. We all compared afterwards. So, so that was sort of a one-size-fit-all, that all addicts are narcissists and they're all antisocial.
Was that based on a test that they gave you?
She actually dragged out the Rorschach, the drawings. I mean, what do you call the butterflies and dragons and all that stuff. Rorschach, yeah. So
and that's what tell us what you see.
Yes,
in this?
She dragged out those, but then it was just a somebody with a certain amount of sobriety under their belt that is called an addiction specialist. Because they've been sober for 10 years.
But on the narcissism thing, it does strike me, and this hasn't come up in our show yet, that people who are addicts, they are very focused on themselves, I think, because they're not feeling good, right? And when you don't feel good, it's hard to think about other people. So is that's
like saying somebody who's suffering from breast cancer is narcissistic.
Yeah,
because they're focused on their recovery. That's just bullshit.
Right.
Sorry.
They don't suffer from narcissism, for instance, like perhaps our president does. But what I mean is, during the time that you have the addiction problem, you might exhibit narcissistic type behaviors because you are very focused on yourself.
But it's not being focused on yourself. It's a compulsive brain disorder. I don't know if you've ever suffered from any addiction, but if you have, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. That's like, you tell a bulimic to stop throwing up. Good luck with that. It's a compulsive behavior. You know that what you're doing isn't rational, but there's no way you can stop it. Yeah. Like you tapping your leg.
I just stopped. See?
No. It's so. In other words, if you walk in the shoes of an addict, you understand that I didn't choose a bottle of wine over my mom. I didn't choose a bottle of wine over my boyfriend. I wasn't being selfish. It's not a selfish behavior. It's like somebody takes over your brain. Somebody's hijacked you.
To the outsiders, it looks selfish.
Of course, it looks selfish, and that's
right.
One of the biggest problems I have when I coach couples. Is that the spouse will say, well, they're choosing alcohol over me. And I have to explain to them, addiction is not a rational behavior. You can't ration with it. You can't reason with it.
Did you see the movie Beautiful Boy?
I did, yes.
That movie really bothered me because the father didn't react properly to the son, I don't think. He was like, oh, son, you're choosing this over me. Not recognizing that, hey, this is a serious problem that needs to be dealt with seriously. They show kind of the ineffectiveness of AA in these rehabs and so on. But at the end of the day, the closing credits where they kind of give you the update and stuff is basically, oh, millions of people suffer from this problem. Help is available. Go seek help.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. You've just shown us for 2 hours how ineffective these different rehab things, but then they give you no solutions whatsoever.
No. Well,
I was really disappointed by that.
I know that they've been doing small experiments with opiate antagonists for meth addiction. But once again, because we are in such a 12-step based, that is what people immediately react to. All of these various medically assisted treatments really aren't spoken about as much. But let me say something positive here, and that is that when I started this in 2009, I only knew of one doctor in the entire United States. To get back to the story, to finish that up, after I got out of that detox treatment, I grabbed a flyer there, and it was for the shot Vivitrol. So I went home and I Googled it, and I looked it up, and I found Dr. Roy Escapa's book, which is rather grandly named "The Cure for Alcoholism," and I started reading the free pages, excerpts from that, and it made sense. I come from a family of doctors and researchers and scientists, and that really made sense to me. So I ordered Naltrexone from some place in India.
And tell me again, where did you find the flyer?
in the rehab facility.
So just like a stack of
I
flyers.
I took them all. I took a stack for this meeting, Smart Recovery, AA meetings, and all this stuff. And then there was one that said cravings for alcohol ? Get the Vivitrol shot. But that was $1,200 a month. And when I called that Tarzana place, they never returned my call, probably because I left early or something. So I ended up researching myself, and that's when I found that the shot is not as effective as oral naltrexone taken in a targeted manner, meaning 1 hour prior to the first drink of the day. So here now, by the time the pills arrived, I had 3-4 months sobriety under my belt. And I was scared, because what if I was one of those tiny percentages of the people that don't respond to naltrexone? I would go on a worse binge and maybe die, because the last one was so bad.
Now, by the way, when you say arrived, what do you mean pills arrived?
I had to order them. At that point in 2009, there were no doctors that would give it to me. My GP refused me, even without looking it up. He immediately presumed it was an opiate, a painkiller, which is the antithesis of that. In fact, if you're on opiates and you take an opiate antagonist, you go into full withdrawal. So this is not good for people who are on opiates currently. If you're clean, you can take naltrexone to stay off of opiates. So I asked my GP.
Sorry, you said 99?
2009.
2009.
I asked my GP, I asked another doctor. Everybody turned me down, so I went online and I just started Googling naltrexone. I found an Indian pharmacy. I gave him my credit card.
But hold on, this is stunning to me that you're talking to MDs, medical
Yes.
doctors.
Yes.
You're acknowledging to them, which a lot of addicts don't like to acknowledge, that I have a problem with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
There is a medication out there called naltrexone, which
That's
is
FDA approved since 1994. Thank you very much.
94.
Yeah.
To treat alcoholism.
To treat alcoholism, and I said I want that medication for cravings, and he said I didn't even tell him I wanted to do the Sinclair method, that I would drink on it. I said I just want it for cravings, and he said never heard of it. Why don't you just stop drinking? Thank you so much. Wow, helpful. So finally I ordered it, and
By the way, do we know whether your insurance would have covered it if he had?
My insurance does cover it now.
And how about then? Do you know? It would have covered it then?
Yes. Naltrexone would have been covered by my Screen Actors Guild insurance even back then. So
instead you ordered from India.
Hundreds of dollars, and it took forever. It took months.
And it was the pills, not the shot.
It was the shot. The shot doesn't allow you to do targeted extinction, because you can't target the alcohol, because the naltrexone will be in your body 24/7. So I ordered the 50 milligram tablets. They arrived, like 2 months later. I had this sobriety under my belt. I got the pills. I bought a bottle of wine, and I made myself a meal, and I prayed to God that this would work. And I took the pill. I waited an hour, and I didn't even finish the glass of wine. That was what I now know as anecdotal evidence or experience from all the people that I've coached over the years, is that is a common reaction in the beginning. Now, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that within 2 weeks you're going to stop drinking. My journey has had, dips and valleys and all sorts of things since 2009. When I finally knew that my brain had switched back to normal was when I drove by a billboard. I speak about it in my TEDx talk. There was this billboard on Ventura Boulevard that had a big glass of red wine and a steak on it. And every time I would drive by it when I was sober, I would be triggered to want to drink. And when I was drinking, I would be triggered to want to drink. It was just a never-ending reminder of my poison, red wine. And this time I drove by that billboard, and my brain just said, that's a billboard.
And that's after you'd been taking the naltrexone
About
for how
4
long?
months.
For 4 months.
Yeah, and that's when I knew my brain had... I literally pulled over and started to weep, because I realized my brain... I wasn't obsessing. People also don't quite understand the idea. As a kid, I had OCD. I was a counter, so I think I had the reference to this kind of compulsive behavior. I would count everything. And I outgrew that. Well, with alcohol, even when you're abstinent, you're obsessed with it, because you're planning everything. That's what that saying that I don't like, dry drunk or white knuckling. It's because even sitting in a meeting, you're thinking, oh God, God, I'm dying. Going out to with people, you say, oh, that guy's going to drink too much, so I don't want to go out. I'm going to stay home. Oh, I can't buy that rum raisin ice cream because it's going to want to trigger me to do this. Oh, I don't want to see these people because they have a wine group. And
so it's constantly in your head, like a radio in your head.
It's the committee that constantly is telling you, even if you've been sober, for some people, for 40 years, I've spoken to people who say, that's why they say one day at a time. They wake up and they're craving. they're white knuckling through each day, and they plan their days accordingly. I'm not going to walk down that aisle in the supermarket because that's where the booze is. So that to me didn't mean that I would be healed, even if I was abstinent. I knew that I was miserable in my abstinence.
I'm curious to ask you about the OCD, because you said at some point you kind of outgrew the OCD, but I'm wondering, did that then morph perhaps into the alcoholism?
You know, I find a lot of coexisting issues with individuals with an alcohol use disorder. I note that a lot of women have eating disorders. I was anorexic briefly in my teens, and the OCD, a lot of us do. I treat a lot of people with, excuse me, I'm not a doctor. I help a lot of people with bipolar, manic depressive. But
So do you think, were you self-medicating perhaps with the alcohol on the OCD?
No, because that was gone by the time I was about 9, and I didn't, like I said, I was a very light drinker. Alcohol didn't interest me really until I started, I was living with somebody who was a restaurateur, and I think that's when I started to entertain more and be around it more, but I wasn't, I could take it or leave it, honestly. It wasn't
So as you sit here today, what is your theory as to how come you got addicted to it?
I think I had the genetic
predisposition,
of course. I mean, both sides of my family. I definitely had the genetics, and then I engaged in the behavior. And to me,
we talked about Mike Pond. That's definitely part of his theory, and he did brain studies and so on on himself, and found these parts of the brain that
absolutely. I believe that and also the other thing is, I did taste alcohol before my brain was fully developed, and that is just a no-brainer right there. If you drink when you're
I think most of us have done that.
15, 16, 17 years, well, people with the genetic predisposition who engage in the behavior, drinking, before their brain is fully developed, around age 21 to 23, they have like a 40% more chance of developing an AUD than had they waited till they were fully developed in the brain. So that is something that if you have addiction in your family and you have children, I would certainly encourage you to not have them drink in their teens, to really explain to them, look, this is a crappy thing to happen to you as an adult. So if you can just, hold off till the legal age, 21.
Yeah.
Just
it's a
do
real
that.
problem in this country, the binge drinking that happens at an early age, which I engaged in, and so many people do. And then in college, I mean, you're 18 years old in college and in the fraternities and so
Well,
forth.
guess what? Guess what it costs us every year? $250 billion. Alcohol misuse costs the United States $250 billion.
Yeah, and that's just a monetary number. That's not.
Well, we also have 1 in 3 adults.
The human element.
Yeah, 1 in 3 adults that will develop an AUD, and 88,000 that will die. 3.3 million people around the world die yearly. That's more than so many other diseases, and yet it's constantly brushed aside for whatever happens to be in the news that day, because alcohol is legal, it's everywhere, and you're allowed to promote it, and the publicity campaigns make it look like if you drink beer, you're going to have really hot girlfriends and you're going to be happy and successful, and
it's the abuse
if that
of it.
if that was for fentanyl, if they had advertisements, where people are like, hey, shoot it up, take fentanyl, you'll feel great. I mean, alcohol destroys lives, and I'm not saying, and this is coming from somebody who's in a harm reduction model. Okay, I'm not in an abstinence based, sober based. That's not what I advocate. I advocate harm reduction using medications that work.
Yeah.